Hello everyone, I am Lexi. I am your host and welcome to Lexi's Book Note. This is a booktube channel right here. I also have a book podcast and website all about books, book club recommendations, Reese Witherspoon books, and then books on my TBR list. So if you listen to my podcast, it is free on Spotify. I have 2 episodes per month. Beginning of the month, I'll just go over the books I'll be reading for the month. I'm part of 2 book clubs, so I'll be 2 books each, one each for each book club for 2 book clubs, and then I'll read books from Reese Witherspoon's book club, and then books on my TBR list that are in theme for the month. So that will just be like a little blurb in the beginning of the month on Spotify, and then the end of the month, I have read maybe almost all of those books, maybe even a little bit more, and I will go over like a summary of each book, my thoughts on them, review, and then a few like mock book club questions, like discussion questions, in case you want to start your own book club or you're already part of one and you want to find a book for the next read. So this channel is kind of like a mock book club. But you're here on BookTube, so you get extra bonuses of seeing my face, my book note, get inspiration for your own, see the book titles, and you can also have those same options on Patreon for $3 a month, and that's to support the podcast and or get all those features I just mentioned that you'll get on BookTube. But since you're here on BookTube, this is a bonus episode, meaning that today's episode is not going to be mentioned on my Spotify podcast. So if I read more than the TBR list for my podcast, those bonus books are going to be mentioned here on BookTube and Patreon. So those are some options for you. So today's book that we're going to go into is Cabin at the End of the World. And I love doing book to film adaptations, so this is one of them. I also love scary. I love Stephen King, so Paul Tremblay for The Cabin at the End of the World has a spooky read. So here is the title, if this glare will go away. I would have the book, but it was overdue, so I was trying to read it. I can't really see it very well. Yeah, I wish I had the book. Most of my books are overdue, so I have to return it early. But hopefully I can get this to like look a little bit better near the end of the episode. You get a glare, but what it basically looks like, it's more of like a greenish background. It's because of the foliage. It takes place in New Hampshire. So this cabin is in the woods, obviously, and you can see the cabin like off in the distance with light coming out of one of the windows. So that's just a little description. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see this by the end of the episode. But that's one of the features you'll get from Patreon and BookTube, that you'll be able to see the book covers, especially if I don't have to return it. Now you can see it a little bit better because my phone is able to adjust. But here's the title for Cabin at the End of the World. And so I'll go over the summary, my thoughts, and then just a couple of discussion questions typically. But for this book, I couldn't find any like real discussion questions, anything that I could really like dig deep into, but rather I found 2 themes, and I'm going to discuss those themes. Typically on other bonus episodes in my podcast, I will have 3 discussion questions, but for Cabin at the End of the World, we're going to go over themes. So what is it about? Cabin at the End of the World takes place with the events that take over the course of one terrifying day. The book opens up introducing us to a 7-year-old girl named Wen. She was adopted from China by a gay couple, Eric and Andrew. Wen is outside their vacation cabin catching and studying grasshoppers. While she's out collecting grasshoppers, she's approached by a large man named Leonard. He tells her that he wants to be her friend and that he and his friends need to have a discussion with the family. She flees into the cabin terrified, and her parents unsuccessfully try to keep the 4 people outside of the cabin. So Wen calls them daddies, like Daddy Eric, Daddy Andrew. So daddies Eric and Andrew are faced the impossible decision to sacrifice one of their family members of 3, to save the world. But they don't really believe that these 4 people are telling them that the end of the world is going to come if they don't sacrifice one of their own. So it's a lot of like, what if, or are they really telling the truth, or what's going to happen? Looking at the news, seeing how the world is collapsing, but not really believing it because they think it's just coincidental and that these 4 people are staging it. But without giving away the end of the book, they are forced to make the decision to sacrifice one of their own to save the rest of the people on the planet. So my thoughts. Written in Stephen King style, this book had me on the edge of my seat. Who will be sacrificed? Would it be one of the parents? Would it be when? Or does nobody get sacrificed and the world comes to an end? The protagonists are faced with this impossible decision, but it takes the whole book, one day, to make it. And the decision is anticlimactic, in my opinion. It's the delivery. So I don't want to spoil the endings. I want you to read it and tell me what you think. If you've seen the movie, I have not yet. I want to watch it and compare and contrast. But I was disappointed with the ending. I wanted more, and I wanted more thrills. It seemed kind of like prolonged. You know how the book takes the course over one day. I would prefer if it was over the course of a couple of days, because it just seems like, oh my gosh, like this book just is one day. Like it sounds so boring. Like, and yeah, it had its moments. It's kind of like, come on, guys, like let's pick up the pace kind of idea of it. But we don't really know what happens at the end of the book. I'm just gonna put it that way. But I did like the writing style. I like the initial thrills of the book. I like the mystery of who was going to be sacrificed, but I expected more than what the book gave me. But I hope the movie has a different ending, and I plan on watching it very soon. I've just been busy reading because I'd much rather be doing that. So instead of discussion questions, I found 2 themes of the book. The first one is violence, and the second is identity and self-perception. So theme number 1, Tremblay challenges readers to consider the nature of violence, its causes, and the morality of using violence to an end. The novel explores what happens when ordinary people are pushed to their limits and must make difficult choices to survive. In the second theme, identity and self-perception, the author creates complex and multifaceted characters, each with their own flaws and strengths, who must grapple with the question of who they are and what they believe. The characters in the novel are forced to confront their own biases and prejudices and must struggle to reconcile the beliefs with the harsh realities of the world around them. So that's just some food for thought. So I want to leave that up to my readers, to if you want to read the book and you want to tell me your thoughts, if you have any discussion questions for me that you want to answer, I have my contact information on my website, lexiesbooknook.com. That is spelled Lexies booknook.com, to let me know what your thoughts are on the book. If you have discussion questions for me that you want me to answer, or if you want to share it, let me know, and I can read it off for you on this podcast, on a bonus episode. Let me know. And you can also buy your own copy of Cabin at the End of the Woods on my website. You go into the bookshop and you can buy your copy there through Amazon. I do get a commission off your sale at no extra cost to you, but I'm just affiliate with Amazon, so feel free to buy your copy. Feel free to buy other copies of different books on my website. See what else I've read so far this year. Come check me out on Spotify, so you can get other material. If you want to support the podcast, you can do that on Patreon. For $3 a month, you get to see my face like you are right now on BookTube. See my book nook, get inspiration for your own, get to see covers. I have my stack of books for June, so you'll be able to see covers like this. It's more difficult on my phone, but you get that bonus. And check me out on BookTube, subscribe and like, tell me what you think. And I hope you enjoyed this episode and keep on reading.